Greetings all, Ferrari Man 601 here. Welcome back to Assetto Corsa and welcome to Mugello. Well, of course, I am sure that all of you, or I would at least hope so, all of you have seen Filius Michaelis driving the F2004, Its Holiness, around this place as part of the lead-up to Il Gran Premio di Toscana, the Tuscan Grand Prix, the first and probably only time that Formula One officially will visit Mugello for a Grand Prix weekend. However, what's the point of this video? Absolutely nothing. We're just going to drive a V10 powered Formula One car and talk a little bit about politics, I guess. It has been quite some time since I've driven the F2004 and even longer since I've driven it at Mugello, so I have no idea if this setup is any good. But not really the point here. I also have not had the tires in the blanket, so they're going to be very cold, and there's going to be understeer. Yes. However, that run that Mick Schumacher did in the F2004, all decked out in the same colors that it wore in its active duty days with the Michael on board, sans the Marlboro advertisements, of course, because, you know, European Union doesn't believe that people have free will enough to resist the urge to buy cigarettes after seeing a race car. But take a look at the reception that that gesture has gotten from all the Formula One fans around the world. Formula One website and their YouTube channel, page and channel combined there, make the word panel. They posted several videos of that run from onboard, from trackside. I'm sure the camera guys at Mugello had a lot of fun trying to track that meteorically fast F2004 flying around these long corners at this wonderful racetrack. Of course, the F2004 would have been developed here, at least in part. Rubens Barrichello described it, I'm quoting Aidan Millward here, as the only car that ever took Arrabbiata flat. We'll see if we can do that here today, but the reception that run, just a quick 2 laps, and they were a quick 2 laps. Mick was pretty much going for it. He's being a little bit conservative from some of the corners because he's driving what is basically a holy relic, and you don't want to be known as the guy who crashed your dad's fancy car. But the reception that has gotten from around the world has been absolutely tremendous. Take a look at the comments underneath those videos on YouTube from the Formula One page. They posted a couple different versions of it, including a great onboard sequence. Everybody saying, wow, this is fantastic. Listen to that thing. That's what a race car needs to sound like. Bring it back. Hashtag V10 forever, all that kind of stuff. And then you see the detractor saying, well, it's so fuel inefficient and it's not green and everything. And companies don't want to join Formula One if it's not green. Do you see any companies absolutely clamoring to get on the grid as it is right now? No, you really don't, especially considering the FIA just raised the entry fee to $200 million for some inexplicable reason. But the fans have definitely taken notice that the F2004 is a cool thing, even though it is, well, how old is it now? 16 years old? And people still look at that car as one of the greatest ever, even though the cars today are absolutely objectively quicker in qualifying trim. Even though that's something that pains me greatly to say. Just really highlights to me the disconnect that Formula One still has with its fans. Evidently, there is a large contingent of people out there who look at a car like this and say, you know what, how come we can't have that anymore? Okay, it's a little bit slower than the modern ones, but not by much, all things considered. You know, it weighs a good 200 kilograms less, has similar horsepower figures. Groove tires, take away a lot of the grip, at least it did in the era. Mick was running it on slicks. That must be absolutely tremendous when you really get it dialed in. Of course, the Clienti guys also run the F2004 and Ali on slicks, so that must be tremendous, especially since they get the chance to play with the setup some. But in an era that has really been punctuated by political division and all kinds of controversy about what should we or what should we not and things like that, it's just good to see that people can step back and just appreciate a cool moment for the sake of it being a cool moment. You got Filius Michaelis driving probably the most legendary car that the Michael ever drove, and people can just sit there for a moment and say, that's cool, I really like that. And then of course the other part of this from this weekend, well, there are a few things that happened this weekend at Mugello. Number one, first ever Formula One race at Mugello. It's only one of a handful of official Formula One events ever to occur at Mugello. Of course, Ferrari owned the circuit, and they regularly bring their Corsa Clienti guys out there. But aside from a Formula One test in 2012, I can't recall the last time that there was an official Formula One sanctioned event at Mugello. And certainly there was never a Grand Prix there before, so that's cool. I hope that Mugello stays on the calendar, but it probably won't for the following. You see that restart pile up? Yep, Valtteri Bottas. What were you thinking? Now, I understand that he did nothing that overtly violated the rules, and he did stay within the letter of the law the whole time. However, who the hell waits until they literally cross the line to put the hammer down on a restart? The green flags are up, the safety cars return to the pit lane. Every other series in the world handles rolling starts off of the flag. When the green flag goes up, that's when you go. Not if your name is Valtteri Bottas. Even when other drivers lead on restarts in Formula One, they don't do what Bottas has done a couple of times. And obviously the most egregious example was last weekend in Mugello. 4 cars out of the race immediately. Another handful damaged due to after effects. Have to wonder if Lance Stroll had actually picked up some damage in that incident. Eventually his day ended right here in the first Arrabbiata. Went wide, broke the left rear suspension. Thankfully we didn't just break our left rear suspension. You gotta wonder why that's allowed. The other politically divisive thing, and this is truly political, leaving the world of motorsport. See the shirt that Lewis Hamilton wore on the podium. Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. And the FIA today have announced that they are investigating Mr. Hamilton for wearing said shirt. They haven't said why they're investigating Mr. Hamilton for wearing said shirt. But if I had to be a betting man, I would say that it's due to the FIA's status as a non-governmental organization. For those of you who are not political science majors, a non-governmental organization, or NGO, is basically a corporate body that acts on behalf or in supplement to governments, be they local, in the municipal level, or provincial, or national level. They act as advocacy organizations for certain segments of the population for all sorts of different special interest topics. In the case of the FIA, they're concerned about drivers, the automotive industry, road safety, things like that. You see the FIA Action for Road Safety sticker on all the Formula One cars. That's part of what the FIA does as a non-governmental organization. The privileges that are granted to a non-governmental organization are varied and multitudinous, depending on what the organization is and where they're working. The FIA has a presence in something like 180 countries around the world, so they are very much an international federation dedicated to the automotive world, hence their name in French, the International Automotive Federation. However, what Lewis Hamilton did in wearing that shirt, yes, he's a human being and therefore he has natural rights. Among those natural rights is a right to free expression. However, when you're on company time, I don't care what your job is, your rights to free expression are not entirely accessible to you. Your employer has the right to regulate your free expression. Because in any industry, in any world, as we bottom out there and we're going to go off, in any world, if you are an employee of any organization, any body, you have to toe the party line sometimes, which means that your true opinions might not be meant for mixed company in those professional settings. Therefore, if the FIA don't want Lewis Hamilton to wear that shirt, the FIA, by proxy of Lewis Hamilton being an employee of Mercedes-Benz, and Mercedes-Benz being a company that has signed the FIA's Concord Agreement to race in Formula One, the FIA can say, hey, don't wear that shirt, you're on company time. And Mercedes, of course, would be obliged to enforce that, otherwise they might be excluded from the championship, really. So there's that. I would say that the FIA, going back to them being an NGO again, They don't want to be seen as commenting on an ongoing litigation situation. Obviously, the Taylor case is very much under review, pending litigation. It's still not entirely known in a legal sense who is actually culpable, responsible, whatever. So I'm sure the FIA, knowing the privileged political status that they have in pretty much every country that they operate in, don't want to be throwing information out there that's not approved in terms of being vetted legally and has started to go through the judicial process in the host country, in this case in the United States. That's not to say that Lewis is right or wrong in expressing his opinions on what he makes of the situation. The girl in question was killed by police officers, plainclothes police officers. We don't know entirely why. We don't know if it was a case of mistaken identity, crossfire, what have you, or if the officers did it in cold blood. We simply don't know. That's something for the lawyers and the judges to determine. But clearly it has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and rightly so, in my opinion. Time will tell on that. But in a larger sense, is all of that why you're watching motorsport? It's not for me. When I'm watching anything on TV, really, unless it's the news where I explicitly want to know about what's going on in the world, I really just want to be entertained. I don't want politics thrown down my throat all the time. I spent way too many years of my life studying how that world works, and quite honestly, I got really disenchanted with it. So I don't want that leisure time to have political opinions being thrown at me from all directions and then forcing me to take a side one way or the other. I just refuse to do that because, hey, I can also express my rights to free expression. So that's where I stand on that particular issue. It's an important discussion to have, but Formula One race? Nope, not the forum that I want to see it in. I do want to see it in, perhaps radio talk shows or TV talk shows, or I want to be reading articles about it. I want to be reading articles written by attorneys, criminal defense lawyers, constitutional lawyers. I want to see that sort of expertise on it. I don't necessarily want to see an athlete telling me what to think, because an athlete is good at the sport that he competes in. He's not somebody who's super up-to-date, state-of-the-art, recognized in that very specific field of whatever he's commentating on. Not to say that Lewis Hamilton is right or wrong. Again, he has a right to say whatever he wants. I just don't want to see it. I really don't. If he wants to talk about it on his own time, on his social media, absolutely, go for it. On the podium of a Formula One race, though, you do you, buddy, fine, but doesn't mean I have to approve of it one way or the other. Which brings me back to Mick and the F2004. It's just cool, isn't it? The car sounds good, it looks good, it goes like hell. Even though it's 16 years old, it absolutely still packs a punch. Mick was, again, driving it pretty good. Not 10/10, but like 8.5, 9, something like that. You definitely noticed that he was having fun for the 2 laps that he was out there, unfortunately. I wish he could have taken the start of the race with it, to be completely honest. But to see a moment like that, where everybody can just step back from the craziness for a moment and say, that's cool, that's Formula One, that's motorsport, that's what we loved to see in the past, and that's what we would love to see in the future, that's cool. That's really what all of this is about, and that's really where all of this should be trying to get back to in the future. We're not there. We're really not there. And I'm sure it's a combination of many factors that are just simply too complicated to get in right now in terms of what the FIA wants to do long-term, what FOM wants to do long-term, and of course all of the geopolitical implications of all of it, but not our concern right now. What I come away with it from is lots of prepositions there and conjunctions. There's a really cool thing that is being allowed to atrophy in the world of Formula One. A single V10 car running around on track was just as much a storyline as the Grand Prix that happened immediately thereafter. And basically people are talking about both things just as much, and to me that's cool, and to me that is very indicative of what Formula One should be trying to be. Once again, a sporting competition showing you the premier level of driver skill, bravery, cool cars that everybody can get behind. I don't think you heard one person saying, oh, the V10 is too loud. No, I don't think you heard that. And if you did hear it, it had to have been a joke. So that's what we really should be concerned about right now. Everything else is just pie in the sky. Form your opinions about it, of course. Become informed about all of it, of course. But don't let it spoil the soul of what's really going on. And really what is going on is we're still talking about race cars doing cool things in really cool places at high speed, which is why we like all of this to begin with, isn't it? Yes. Until next time, thank you all very much for watching. Ferrari Man 601 saying thanks, and of course, we will see you soon.